Hey everybody, Dave Webster, Identity Crisis Design. I've got a customer who had commissioned me to put in a factory stripe on this double factory stripe, quote unquote, in the same fashion as the factory had it. Not the decal, he just wants that line going around. He's got something else in mind for the decal. I already did the front fender and the rear fender in the same way that I'm going to be doing the side of the tank. He just wanted a little bit of a gingerbread on the front there and brown stripe, green stripe. I had sent him some samples. You want the green on the inside, the green on the outside. You want the fat stripe to be green, the fat stripe to be the brown stripe. And then once he decided what it was he wanted, I got to work and did the fenders a couple of days, like 2 days before this. My time is limited, so I got to give myself, I got to set it aside and make sure I'm not going to be interrupted by dogs or phone calls or anything like that. So what I'm using here is Finesse tape. Now there are guys that do coach lining, which is basically your straight lines down the side of a car, and they'll do it by hand, and they're very good at it. They do it all the time. They're like a machine, and they're nigh unto flawless. I do not have that kind of practice. That's not a completely different discipline as far as the tools that you use, but it is a different technique than working in one spot, doing a symmetrical or asymmetrical design with a lot of curves and stuff in it. It's like, when you paint something with a lot of pattern and stuff in it, you can hide flaws, but when you paint something with a solid color, you see every piece of dirt. And it's the same way with pinstripe lines. When there's no design work to fool the eye, to go back and forth, it takes a while before you can see something's heavy on one side or too close or it's uneven from one side to the next, however minuscule. So I like to use Finesse tape. I keep about 10 to 13 different configurations, of which there are about 55. I find a lot of them they're not as useful for me because when I do pinstripe repair, I'm doing basic what would go on a car that comes off of a showroom. Some of the patterns can be racier, some of them are just a single stripe, and really it's a tool for a lot of times for the layperson who's either can't find a pinstriper or doesn't want to hire one or whatever. If you're just getting into it or you just want to do your own car, it's not a bad. I give them my money. It's a pretty ingenious system. So what it is, and you can see me really pulling and bending this stuff because it's not very pliable. I'm working with this stuff, I believe, outside of the purview of really what it's used for. Its strength is straight lines, but I've managed to manipulate it. It's not like regular fine line tape where you can just whip it around and do all kinds of flames and curves and stuff. And even a curve as big as the one that you see below the bunghole, it takes a lot of kind of sculpting. And then you'll see later in the video where I don't even bother trying to take this stuff around the curve, around the bottom as it heads towards the front. So what it is, what it is that thin style packing tape. I know you've probably seen it before. It's brown. It's like this dark tan color, and it's sliced. It's cut with precision, and then there's a second semi-pliable layer on top of it, and that's to stabilize those lines underneath. It's not like vinyl tape. It's not like vinyl pinstripes where you lay them down and then you walk away and that's what it is. This is a mask. So I'm going to be painting in between these lines where you can see the color of the tank come through. It takes a little bit of manipulation to get that second layer off, as you can see happening right here. And I always like to really make sure that tape is pressed down because even though you want to do your due diligence of wax and grease remover, and then I use a denatured alcohol and water solution, like a diluted denatured alcohol, to wipe off what I just wiped off to make sure. You never know what's on the surface of something, what their buffing compound is made of, or in one case a couple of weeks ago, if a car has been put through the car wash and they put that ceramic final coating on it, you need to ask about that stuff, because you will have an issue with adhesion. So you can see what I'm doing here, and hopefully I was astute enough to remember to show you on the camera and spin the tank around so that you can see I'm just going to get the front on straight. I'm going to ignore the second curve that curves down and to the right and heading forward. I'm not even going to bother. I'm going to freehand those curves. Incidentally, the tank I'm using is called Joe's gas tank stand, and I got it years ago. It was something I'd seen on Facebook. I'll look to see if the guy still makes them. It's actually a great tool. The advantage being that depending on the tank and how you configure it on the stand, that it sits on the stand and can spin, or you can lock it in place. That however it sits on the tank is how it would sit on the bike. So if there's an aspect of your design that requires that it be level, that's not something that you need to worry about. There's no guesswork. This is how the tank sits on the bike. So, repeat on the other side. I'm going to start with the straight line and getting it the same on both sides. Always easier to do the first side, and then when you go to do the second side, you've got to match things up. There's a lot more stretching and pulling it, taking it off and putting it back on again. In one part of the video, I believe, in between takes, I was satisfied with how I put the tape on, and then I walked away to get a coffee or a water or something, and then I came back and I was looking, and I was like, it's not quite the same. And this is, and you'll see, using seamstress tape to measure out from the middle, and then even still, it's, you measure it and you're like, it's like doesn't quite look right. Where am I missing it? Or what should I be measuring off of? Because it's curved. Am I going to measure off of the attachment points? Am I going to measure off of? You can't measure off of the weld because sometimes they're different on one side than on the other side of the tank to accommodate the petcock. But there's a gas cap on one side, as a for instance, and a gas gauge on the other side. When you take the gas cap off, and if you take the fuel gauge out, you'll notice that one hole in the tank is bigger than the other. So that suggests that the edge of one stripe is going to be a shorter distance from either the gas cap or the fuel gauge, and little stuff like that. It can be tricky. I look from the front of the tank to the top of the tank to the back of the tank so that distances are the same in angles and all that. I'll use my hands like this to see if I can, feel from one way to the other. Does it feel lower? Does it feel higher? And this is a lot of times an OCD. You want to give your customer the best possible job that you can. But there is a point where, and it's not like it's a conscious thought or anything. If I can barely see it, then they're definitely not going to see anything. There's maybe 4 or 5 times in a 20 or 30 year career where you get that one person that needs to be medicated, and they start picking out stuff that isn't even your fault. Somehow, those people are out there. That's not this. This guy is stable, so I thankful for that. So I'm going to speed up the rest of me putting the tape on the other side here, because there's a lot of pulling, there's a lot of adjusting, and then even after I come back after cutting, I do more of it. In fact, I think I pull tape off altogether and just crumple it up and try it over again, because there's only so much pliability, there's only so much bending and replacing that you can do with this stuff before it starts to lose its integrity. You're trying to keep any wrinkles out. And again, I am using this stuff in a way that really isn't prescribed. It can be, you're not doing flames with this stuff. And again, like the curve that I've got on the top of the tank, there's probably as tight as you're going to want to try to get it. You go tighter than that, and it starts to collapse in on itself. And, and now you're really kind of, cheating. If you're going to call yourself a pinstriper, you should be able to pull a curve, and you'll see me attempt that down on the bottom side of this side, the bottom edge of this side of the tank. So let's get it moving. So here I grab a Dixie cup and a water-soluble pencil and give myself a little bit of guidance so that after I pull the tape off, I'll know, because I have to pull the tape off before I can do my own curves. So I basically just give myself a little curve. I do it on both sides, and after that I'm ready to mix up my paint and move along. So the paint is mixed up, and I use a catalyst in my paint so that it retains the gloss. It makes the paint a little bit tougher. And problem is, it comes in a 16-ounce jar. So if you open it a lot and close it a lot, it causes it to go bad. So I like to keep mine in little toothpaste tubes. I'll get empty ones from eBay or Amazon or wherever and transfer it over just like that little guy there. So I'm going to be laying down my first color. It does make it a little bit easier. The one thing that you do have to watch out for when you're using the masking system here is not to be overconfident. You want to make sure that you go from one edge to the other, and look out for those areas where the paint didn't quite get all the way over to the edge. You don't want to pull the tape off and then all of a sudden notice that you've got a skinny spot. And also, I have to apologize for some of the camera work here. I try to set it up and get everything in frame. That's not always possible, and I believe that I think I had something on the lens. This whole video seems to have a Barbara Walters interview quality to it. It's kind of a, I don't want to say washed out, but it's ethereal looking, and I didn't notice it until after I took the camera. I was looking at the footage and stuff, and I turned it over and I could see there was like a smudge on the lens. I'm like, well, can't do it over, so that's where we're at. So I'm going to get through this first color here, and then we'll move on to the next. Yeah. A lot of times I might even purposefully stripe just to one side of the mask so that I know that I've got each edge hit. Do one side, then do the other side. You can see the red lines there. My curve is mapped out, so I know where to stop and start. My straight lines. And then we'll move on to the green color here in a second. Right, so I've got my green mixed up. Got it catalyzed, and it's an interesting part here. I'm not ambidextrous, so I have to get I'm doing the right side now. It's off camera, but you'll see the on the left side. Actually, I have to use my left hand just to get that little bit that's underneath. And once that is done, I can, stop being a southpaw. A bad one, too. We'll speed up the film for this and get on to the more interesting part. Yeah, see that? I can feel how uncomfortable I am doing this, even with the... Yeah, that's all I needed to get. Yeah, so here I spotted a little sliver of brown missing. So I always keep the paint. Don't toss it after you're done with your first color. Always keep it around till the end of the job. And I knew that I was going to need it later to do these curves anyway, so I just had to clean the brush out, get some brown on there, and now the moment of truth. So clean. Worth all of the effort to put this tape down. It can be aggravating, sure, but it's even more aggravating if you're... Because in the end, the customer doesn't care how it got there. They just want it to look good. I know I'm more impressed with guys that can pull coach lines that look like they were shot out of a gun, super straight and even. There's no variation in line weight. There's no variation in the spacing from one line to the next. But I want my customer to be happy. So now I'm going to be using the guide that I put down with the red water soluble pencil. Then I'll also adjust the video here so you can see closer what's going on. Okay. I believe my first attempt at this is a failure. But I decided to keep it in the video because, anybody that's going to want to learn pinstriping is also, you need to know how to fix this stuff because not everything comes out perfect. For example, I think my curve is a little too tight, and I'm pretty sure that this here brush is on its last legs. They can get old, they can get dried out, they can get too much paint in them. They go bald after a while, depending on how tightly they were wrapped in the beginning. But all you need to do to fix a stripe like this is to get some thinner on the rag, some like mineral spirits or wax and grease remover. You don't really want to put lacquer thinner and mess with that stuff. It really dries out your skin. All of this stuff is kind of bad for your skin. I should have gloves on, but I can't stand it when my hands get sweaty. So I think in the next shot here, yeah, I adjusted the camera so that, and I still zoomed in on it here a little bit, but just to give you an idea, the artist is spending their entire life 6 inches away from this stuff, and you see everything. Most people aren't going to, unless you're a pinstriper and you see, somebody like me is going to get closer to a paint job than just the average person at a bike rally. It's not recommended because, people get nervous about their ride and you don't want to make the wrong person nervous. If I see a decent paint job, I'll get right down on it and see if, how good it is, if there's any issues, or you know what I mean, that you sort of compare yourself to the work that you're looking at there. But I do really feel good about this particular curve. I'm just trying to sculpt it a little bit so that I don't have any fat spots and skinny spots. And that can be a little bit challenging because as the paint dries, it creates some sort of a ledge, and trying to make it not look overworked. And you see, I'm happy with that. I might be happy with that. I might go back into it and mess with it some more, but for right now, this is good stuff. Now, I know in the future, I think it's going to be on the green stripe on this side. You're going to get to see the... Yeah, I remember feeling really good about that pull. Perfect. Really didn't need to adjust to anything. It looks like it doesn't need any help. Now, going back in on the green, you're going to get to see the paint pusher tool. Yeah, so it's a thicker line, and I'm using the same brush, so you push down on the brush a little bit more, and then it's a tighter curve, so you're spinning the brush a little bit more, and it's those three things: your direction that you're dragging it, how tight are you spinning it, and how and how wide are you making it, the pressure on the brush. See, there's a little artifact up there at the top, and there is a couple of times in here where I could feel see a piece of dirt in it. Now you see right there, you can see that curve gets a little too close to that brown line, and I think there's a point where I just am a little disgusted with it, and I just decide to fix it. Now the thing is, I don't want to wipe this off. I can't wipe that green off effectively without ruining the brown stripe. And see, there's a little crumb in there. I can try to pick that out by turning the brush over and sort of shoveling it. But right there, I just, I mean, it's the thing is, the Finesse tape makes the rest of the stripe look so good. And I had one of these moments on the back of the front fender, which isn't really seen a whole lot, and I've heard it so many times I've actually begun to believe it. When you hand us a paint job like this over to a customer, they'll say, well, if it looked perfect, it wouldn't look like it was done by hand. So I'm getting in really close here so you can see how the squeegee works. That little thing sticking out of there just it bugs me. So you get this little rubber squeegee, and push that back into the line, and there you go. See, that's perfect. Now I'm going to, again, with this tool, just like with the tape, I'm going to try to get it to do more than it's supposed to. We'll see if I can. I'm sorry, just me watching it. It's like an action movie, because if you're not careful, it'll slide right through that thing, and now you've got a big mess. So you kind of press down and over. There might be a point where there's a little bit of paint that just doesn't want to come up. There's my hair, and some color. So you put a little bit of thinner or a little bit of wax and grease remover on the end of it, and then just kind of like I just kind of tap it twice on my jeans, because now if you've got a solvent on there, now it's going to want to flood and run all over the place. So on one hand, I'm trying to use it with a little bit of cleaner on there that hasn't quite evaporated all the way to keep it from staining, but you can see what's happening here. I'm just kind of pushing it back into the line, and then I'm going to go back in with the brush and clean up that edge. So let's speed this up. Right, so I think, I get in there with the brush, and I'm still not happy. It's really, I feel more like a sculptor at this point than a painter, taking huge chunks out. and just really trying again. Every time I take because this is sped up, but every time I take the brush or the squeegee away, I'm wiping it off again. You can't go in there and squeegee with a little bit of paint on there still. So this was like the other side of the tank. The first line I was not happy with, and I believe on this side I went in with, yeah, it was a little skinny, a little bit of a skinniness on there, but generally happy with it. Yeah, I think it was I was basically doing the approach that I would on the Finesse tape, where I want to cover one side of it, make sure that I've got my distance taken care of, and then worry about the way the rest of the stripe looks. Kind of go back in and instead of add to it instead of taking away the stuff that I don't like. But yeah, this is that part where your customer looks at it and go, okay, well, even if they see that it's a little bit skinnier, but the curve is the curve doesn't have any real flat spots or sharp spots. So I felt pretty good about this one. Second time is always a charm or whatever.
Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell, share the video with your friends, and don't forget to visit my website, idcrisisdesign.com. You can see a lot of great artwork and my products for sale. Links are in the description. Thanks for watching.